Well, good evening. It's Caroline Stevens, Seeking the Truth. It's going to be a chat about food again. It's food security part 2. You may recall that a few days ago I did one on food, and I was concerned about our food security. After all, we are an island, so we could be put in a very vulnerable position. But before I start that, I don't know if you remember this book from years and years ago. I've just uncovered it. And it says The Magic Roundabout, Dougal and the Space Rocket. Okay, well, Brexit is a bit like the Magic Roundabout because we've spent 4.5 years on the roundabout and we've just gone round and round and round. And if you look back at newspaper articles from 4 years ago, those articles are often regurgitated right now and just added a few more words. So we are like, it's as if we're on a magic roundabout. Anyway, Dougal and, now I don't know, this could be the politicians actually, because it says Florence and Dougal met in the Magic Garden. Hello, Dougal, said Florence. Have you seen Mr. McHenry? No, says Dougal. I am looking for old Mr. McHenry now. We can look together. Well, I don't know. Is this Priti Patel and Boris Johnson? So they're off looking around. We can only go into the greenhouse. That's where he magics his plants. Good idea, says Dougal. But when they reach Mr. McHenry's greenhouse, they cannot find him anywhere. He is not there. But you see, he magics his plants in the greenhouse. And I wish it was that easy for us to be able to produce more plants after the 1st of January. Now, you see, it looks like to me that Dougal and Florence are going off into a space rocket. And that's probably the best place for our politicians at this moment in time. Okay, so that's my intro. According to the Country Farm magazine, on the 22nd of March 2019, a no-deal Brexit would be catastrophic for UK farming. That was the warning from the NFU, the National Farmers Union. It will increase food prices and damage the industry, according to the President, Minette Batters. She explained that a no-deal Brexit would be disastrous, not only for our farmers but for the public too, who rely on our ability to provide them with a sustainable, safe and affordable supply of high-quality British food. Goods from the EU are currently tariff-free, but in the case of a no-deal Brexit, World Trade Organization taxes remain the default position. The British Retail Consortium, BRC, had previously warned that the introduction of MFN WTO tariffs would mean, for example, the price of cheddar cheese could increase by up to 32%, beef by 29%, and tomatoes by 9 to 18%. So that was back in March 2019. Now let's take a look at the world for a minute. And there is a report that's just been produced. It's called the Food Security and Nutrition Around the World in 2020. Now this is what it looks like. Okay, that's the report on the internet. You can see you've got UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and so on. And it says the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2020. I'm sure you don't want to read the whole report, but I picked out a few bits. It says 5 years into the 2030 agenda, it is time to assess progress and to question whether continuing efforts implemented thus far will allow countries to reach the Sustainable Development Goal 2 targets. They warn that people must be cautious with their projections. So basically, we can't take everything that they write as gospel. However, they estimate that almost 690 million people in the world, that's 8.9% of the world's population, were undernourished last year. The number of people affected by hunger in the world continues to increase slowly. This trend started in 2014 and went on till last year. Why is this happening, they ask? Well, they say that recent increases in food insecurity can be attributed to the greater number of conflicts, often exacerbated by climate-related shocks. Even in some peaceful settings, food security has deteriorated as a result of economic slowdowns threatening access to food for the poor. The evidence also reveals that the world is not on track to achieve zero hunger target by 2030. As a result, the global number of undernourished people at that time would exceed 840 million people. So at the time of writing, the COVID-19 pandemic was spreading across the globe, clearly posing a serious threat to food security. Preliminary assessments based on the latest available global economic outlooks suggest that the COVID-19 pandemic may add between 83 and 132 million people to the total number of undernourished in the world in 2020, depending on the economic growth scenario. So globally, as of last year, it's estimated that 44% of infants aged less than 6 months were exclusively breastfed. So they're even looking at whether children, babies, are breastfed or not as part of their targets. Currently, the world is on track to achieve the 2025 target of at least 50% of babies younger than 6 months being exclusively breastfed. If additional efforts are not made, however, the global target for 2030 of at least 70% will not be achieved before 2038. So they're interfering in the minutiae of people's lives. They've got a target of 70% by 2030. That 70% of mums must breastfeed their children. Adult obesity continues to rise from 11.8% in 2012 to 13.1% in 2016 and is not on track to reach the global target to halt the rise in adult obesity by 2025. You can see where this is leading, can't you? None of these targets that they have set for the people of the world have been met, and surely there is only one way to meet all these targets. What do you think that would be? Analysis of dietary patterns according to levels of food insecurity found that diet quality worsens with increasing severity of food insecurity. Who would have guessed it? I bet these people get paid huge amounts of money to spout the bleeding obvious, really. In summary, with 10 years to go until 2030, the world is off track to achieve the targets for hunger and malnutrition. Projections for 2030, even without considering the potential impact of COVID-19, serve as a warning that the current level of effort is not enough to reach zero hunger 10 years from now. So what people eat and how that food is produced not only affects their health, but also has major ramifications for the state of the environment and for climate change. we seem to be a bit of an impediment to the United Nations. That's how I read this. The food system underpinning the world's current dietary patterns is responsible for around 21 to 37%, not that accurate then, of total greenhouse gases. So it reveals it's a major driver of climate change. In their words, our food system is a major driver of climate change. Okay, so just keep that hanging there. That was that report. For anybody just tuning in, this is all to be found in this report on the internet. Okay, so let's go back to the UK. How is this going to affect us? Well, let's have a look at the Times newspaper. And we're going back to last month, 19th of October. And we mentioned the NFU president, Minette Batters. Well, she actually is a farmer. She starts her day at 5:30 with 25 press-ups and a run around her farm with her dog to check the sheep, cattle and horses before waking her teenage twins, then jumping in the car with a black coffee to wind her way through the Wiltshire countryside to catch the train to London. There she changes into heels to meet Doris. We know who Doris is. So ushered into number 10, worried that she might still have mud on her face and straw in her hair, the National Farmers Union president found herself sitting opposite an even more dishevelled Doris. She says, "I was keen to prove I don't have a set of horns and I am not a raving lunatic." Q, yep, you're thinking about it, Doris. Anyway, that's what she said about herself. Horns, raving lunatic. Don't know who she could be thinking about. Anyway, only a week ago, following on from media reports around a no-deal Brexit and its potential impact on Welsh farming, the Welsh NFU now stressed the importance of the UK government securing a favourable trade deal with the EU. This isn't in the Times now. This is a Welsh newspaper. So we've got the Welsh NFU only a week ago. I think it was the 17th of November. And they were talking about the impact of a no-deal Brexit. President John Davis said the NFU there had been consistent in its messaging that a no-deal Brexit outcome, which would see the UK trading with the EU on WTO terms, would be a catastrophic position for Welsh farming. The reason for our strong position is that the EU market has been and remains the nearest, largest and most lucrative export market for many Welsh products, and it's a marketplace where our customers recognise and value the Welsh brand and the high standards that it represents. So we've got probably the highest animal ethics, the husbandry in the world. Only a year ago, he says, the industry was told that the odds of a no-deal Brexit were 1,000,000 to 1 against. And remember, there was an oven-ready deal. Yet here we are, only weeks before the end of the transition period, facing the prospect of a no deal with high tariffs on our exports. Mr. Davis insisted comments made by the Secretary of State, George Eustice, on the Andrew Marr show over the weekend served to further underline why it is important to Welsh agriculture that the UK government is able to agree a deal that secures access to the EU without tariff barriers and with minimal friction. You can see we're winding up to a perfect storm. The Secretary of State's view that Welsh sheep farmers could diversify into beef production to offset the impact of a non-negotiated outcome will be of major concern to our sheep farmers, who are some of the most efficient and innovative in the world, producing a quality product, he added. These politicians don't live in the real world. It is November the 25th. And we've got 6 weeks, no, not even 6 weeks, 5 weeks for our farmers to know what's going to happen on the 1st of January. Animals just, it's not like magicking plants in the Magic Roundabout, which is the book I was talking about at the beginning. This is real life. We don't have a wand. And this government, these successive governments, have spent 4.5 years playing with our minds, because they knew all along that they have no power. It's the elite. They like to call themselves elite. They're in charge. Remember World War II at the end of, you had Rothschild, brother number 1, on one side of the table, and you had second brother on the other. They win whichever side of the table they are sitting on. So we've got this Welsh situation, and not so he says the Secretary of State's view that Welsh sheep farmers could diversify into beef production to offset the impact of a non-negotiated outcome will be big concern to Welsh sheep farmers. We produce quality produce. So the reality is that changing production methods involves long-term production cycles, and for many the significant investment required makes it an unviable option. The devil is always in the detail. Now this is my words now. And so people are saying to me on my timeline, Caroline, you were the Brexit campaign manager. Does this mean you do not want Brexit? And I said, well, what was Brexit all about? We said we were going to take back control. Nobody said that our government wasn't going to do the right thing for the people. We didn't know that. So the devil's always in the detail. I mean, if you go and buy a house, you get a survey before you sign contracts. So why anybody thinks that our government is here for the people when they've enforced all these ridiculous lockdowns, and then people think, oh, the government's going to be reasonable on Brexit, they're going to get the good deal. No, they're not. The devil is in the detail. Have you read these contracts, what they entail? Yes, we've been signing trade deals, but a lot of those trade deals are just basically same old, same old. Say, for example, the one with Japan. The EU had one with Japan, so now it's the UK with Japan. But the detail isn't that greatly different. So, to finish off, Liz Truss said an agreement was an important step towards the UK eventually joining the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So basically, by signing this Japanese trade deal, takes us into a different area of the world, and she says, yes, it's an important step. It's a stepping stone for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would secure the country access to markets in 11 countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So from the 1st of January 2021, the UK will apply a UK specific tariff to imported goods, and it's out of the EU and into the brave new world or order. So imagine a patchwork quilt. You've got all these patches and they're all basically sewn together in some sort of order. All these agreements are doing is basically shifting things around, and we're signing these trade deals in a different way, but it's still a patchwork quilt. And not only that, but if you look at some of these trade deals that are being proposed, they want free movement of people. So Brexit, what Brexit? One of the reasons, the two main reasons why people voted to leave the European Union. The first one was to take back control of legislation and put the British people first. That has not happened. Secondly, immigration. We wanted to take control of that. Well, we've got hotels up and down the country filled with people from all over the world. And with all these trade agreements being signed, take a look and check out the movement, the free movement of workers. What control? And also with these trade deals, are they going to be incorporating these corporate courts which keep the nation states, put them over a barrel for corporate interests? Check the details of all this. Just don't keep shooting up at the hip. Yes, we might have signed a trade deal with Israel and Lebanon, but in these COVID-19 times, are they going to be exporting apples and oranges to us on the 2nd of January? I very much doubt it. Life just doesn't work like that. Anyway, please do share this video. This was the food video part 2. There may be a part 3 one. Hopefully there will, because this is a huge topic at the moment. We want to know what fills the vacuum of the 73% of fruit and veg we get in from the EU, because it comes in from the EU. Even if it comes from a different part of the world, it goes to Rotterdam first, and that's part of the EU, and then it comes to us. Don't think our MPs like us. No, 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 no. They don't at all. They treat us with contempt. They don't answer your mail. And they think they can lie in Parliament. They think they've got parliamentary privilege. And they think they can have all these other jobs at the same time as rubber stamping legislation coming from the civil servants. Take care. I'll see you again 9 o'clock. I'm going to be on Dennis Barnes' show. Dennis Barnes, B-A-R-N-E-S. 9 o'clock on his timeline. And take care. Have a good evening.